Dr. Vincent Harding was a spiritually grounded social change activist, if I had to say it in one sentence.
Dr. Vincent Harding was the most amazing humanitarian who tried to spread love and nonviolence and peace throughout the world.
Vincent, I think, would describe himself as an heir apparent to the vision of Martin Luther King Jr. He himself was deeply committed to the principles of nonviolence, but also committed to the principle of justice and freedom for all.
He was a mentor, a friend, a person who dug so deeply into the meaning of what it means to be a human being and what it means to live in a democracy, and the kinds of changes that would have to occur both in the individual human beings as well as in this country for it to ever become the America that it has never been.
His importance that I saw was not only his depth of knowledge in terms of the history of Africans in the diaspora, and Africans in the United States, Northern American diaspora, but his tying and connecting the dots between people in exile and people on the continent, and the bizarre, unusual way in which he tied together the intellectual element and the spiritual element.
Dr. Harding, of course, has had an illustrious career, being that teacher, writer, being so much a part of history that meant change in this nation, change that was badly needed. And he had the ability to put words to paper, words that were often spoken by other people, but he had that gift of phrasing and knew what impact those words could have on the present and the future.
I met Dr. Harding when I was 19 years old as a freshman at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, and he and Rosemary Freeney Harding were the co-directors of the Mennonite House. And I would go there on Sundays for their lunches and conversation. And it was the beginning of the changing of the direction of my life. And I saw and see Vincent as having had such a profound impact on the direction I would take. I mean, he has a lot to do with me becoming a civil rights activist and also becoming a human rights activist.
And he could look at me and almost look through me. And he would just be so calm, so still. And I was always about this movement, and I was telling him all the things we were doing, and I talk about Malik and Tom and everybody and the company. And then he would just make me be still. And I'd sit next to him and he'd say, "Cleo, be strong." And I'd think, uh-oh, what do I have to be strong about? What does he see? And then when things would happen that I knew were more than I could ever imagine, I would think about what he said to me.
He, more than any other single person or any other single thing, put me on the path to working in the field of Black history. I quite frankly had no interest in becoming a historian. I had no interest really in being engaged in Black history as a vocation. But after spending time with Vincent for about 2 or 3 years at the Institute, after working at the Institute, I discovered that that was a place where I could devote my time in a meaningful way. Serve scholars, serve educators, serve people who were seeking knowledge. and contribute in meaningful ways through that process.
But what he reminded us of is the movement is not a relic of history, and the movement is not over, and it's got to take on new forms in this current age. And so that was how he told the story of the movement, but not in a way of keeping it in the past, but by bringing it alive into the future.
I met Dr. Harding at the late 20th century and into the 21st century. And he was still working towards freedom. He was still a part of an ongoing movement. He was still sharing information. So I think his legacy is going to be intergenerational. It's going to be multidimensional. He was working prior to what's known as the Civil Rights Movement, and he worked through the Civil Rights Movement. He was there through the Black Power movement. He was recently in Palestine. He wore a button that said "War is terrorism," and it didn't just talk about the Vietnam War. That he was known in terms of the speech he wrote. It was talking about any war. So his legacy is, to me, is one of keeping the struggle relevant for future generations.
And what I'm saying about Dr. Harding is that his soul and his body are separated. His soul has gone into the spirit world, and from there, you as a human being can always ask his advice, his direction, and it will come to you. He will either come to you, or his thoughts will come to you in the dreams, or as you talk, or as you walk, and you will see him at some point in time.
So many times in my 47 years of ordained ministry, I found out that many of us miss greatness because of nearness. To be around somebody as great as Vincent Harding is easily missed when it's daddy who's saying you can't go outside, or daddy who's punishing you, or daddy who's saying do your homework. That one of the greatest human beings to walk this planet Earth in the 20th and 21st century was your husband now, Josie, your dad, Rachel, Jonathan. Cherish that gift that God gave you, and I say to you, thank you for sharing that gift with us and with this world.